A lot is going on in the world. We have news that Muhammadu Buhari, Nigeria's former president, has passed away at the age of 82. And some people are remembering him as one who was both a dictator and a Democrat. So he is to be buried in Dara. So that is something that folks are talking about out of the African continent. And South Korea to order airlines to check Boeing fuel switches. So Air India is inspecting its fleet. 32 seconds to disaster. However, routine takeoff turned catastrophic. So that is something that folks are talking about as well. And an Irish baby was discarded in a septic tank 80 years ago, and her sister won't rest until she's buried. Evacuation of child mass grave at church run home begins in Ireland. So that's in Tome, Ireland, and everything like that. So definitely that is something that folks are definitely dealing with in the European area. And India's Justin Carr hails a positive trajectory in China ties. So avoiding trade curves vital for normalization of ties, India tells China. So S. Jaishankar urges open dialogue with China amid complex global situation. So that is something that folks are talking about as well. And Macron increases military spending, saying freedom is threatened. To be free in this world, you must be feared. France Macron calls for defense spending boost, and Europe's freedom faces greatest threat since World War II, is what Macron says. So France to quicken defense spending boost in a bid to be feared. And German tourists describes a 12-day ordeal where they were lost in Australian wilderness. So German lost in Australian outback, beyond grateful to be found. So the backpacker who had been missing for 12 days in remote Australian outback breaks silence and definitely is definitely glad to be back home and all along those lines. And IDF blames error for Gaza strike that killed children collecting water. So Gaza official says children killed in strike as Israeli military admits error. So children killed collecting water in Gaza, medical officials say, as ceasefire talks hit a sticking point. And Israeli strikes military tanks in southern Syria as Syrian forces clash with the Druze militias. Yeah, so that is something that folks are talking about is clashes between Druze and the Bedouin in South kill 30. Israeli jets hit Syrian forces seeking to quell sectarian clashes in the south. So that is something that folks are talking about as well. And Australia, once again in the news, hosts the largest ever military exercise with 19 nations. And of course, that is likely to draw Chinese attention as well. So it looks like the Australians are hosting the largest ever military war games that they've been involved in the past. And the former Israeli leader says planned humanitarian city in Gaza would be a concentration camp. Plan to permanently displace Palestinians threatens to derail the Gaza truce. So definitely it looks like Lapid and Olmert slammed the Israelis' plans for the concentration camp in Gaza's Rafah. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. And Ukraine hits back after top agent was assassinated in Kyiv. Russia's agents killed after intelligence officer was shot dead, according to Ukraine. Ukraine's Secret Service says it killed Russian agents suspected of the Kyiv assassination. And I know that our man in Kyiv will be talking about that probably on Tuesday. That being Ivan, since we do the Ukraine, Russia, China show on Tuesdays and Fridays, and he's usually in place on Tuesdays. And a prisoner in France escapes in his cellmate's bag. So a man escaped prison by hiding in the luggage of a fellow cellmate as he's released in France. How you hide in a cellmate's bag is beyond me, but apparently he pulled it off. Prisoners escape in cellmate's laundry bag fuels overcrowding debate in France. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. And Paul Biya, the Cameroon president, seeks his eighth term to extend his 43-year rule. So it looks like he's been a president for a very long time, and it looks like he will be seeking his eighth presidential term. And definitely we'll see how this goes on as the Cameroon's 92-year-old president is seeking his eighth term. So he's up there in age as well. And emergency teams respond to plane collision at London Southend Airport. Southend Airport plane crash and all along those lines. So definitely, that's something that folks are talking about. They're talking about climate change as its paradise lost as climate change remakes Europe's summer. So I know that that's something that definitely Nick can relate to. As the European heat wave has caused 2,300 deaths, scientists are estimated. Extreme heat is a killer. A recent heat wave shows how much more deadly it's becoming. And Trump's patience on tariff is running thin as nations jostle for deals. So Trump readies blanket tariff as he brushes off inflation worries. So we'll see how this all plays out as well. Trump promised 200 deals by now. He's gotten three, and one more is getting very close. So it just looks like he's maybe making a couple of deals here as well. And search ends for those missing after Yemen's Houthi rebels sink ship in the Red Sea. All crew Muslim ships look to dodge Red Sea attack with messages, and the Houthis took sailor hostage after attacking the ship, the U.S. says. So it looks like the Houthis now becoming more emboldened after sinking two ships in the Red Sea, according to some analysis, including some military analysis as well. And North Korea unconditionally backed Russia's war in Ukraine during Sergio Lavrov's visit. So Kim Jong Un reaffirms support for Russia's war in Ukraine. North Korea's Kim, hosting Lavrov, says he will support Russia to resolve the Ukraine war. Kim Jong Un says he'll unconditionally support Russia's war amid a report he's sending 30,000 more troops against Ukraine. And in the U.S., Iran strikes afterglow buys Netanyahu time to carry on an ineffective Gaza war. Netanyahu says he's confident hostage deals can be reached. Iran in deep trouble is what he's saying, and all along those lines. Like I said, there's a lot going on in the various continents of the world. And a wildfire destroys the historic Grand Canyon Lodge. North Rim closes for the season. So the historic Grand Canyon Lodge destroyed in the wildfire, which closes North Rim for the season, as I'm saying. And we'll see what other kind of things are going on by in terms of the weather. And some Alcatraz detainees have no criminal record, list shows. So Florida lawmakers allowed into Alcatraz says detainees are packed into cages and hundreds of detainees with no criminal charges sent to Trump's alligator Alcatraz. And the man who killed two at a Kentucky church, shot trooper, had domestic violence hearing on Monday. Coroner confirms identity of shooter who killed two at a Lexington church. So that is something that folks are talking about as well. And Trump's spending bill would likely boost costs for insurers and shrink Medicaid coverage. So a lot of people are worried about that as well. So definitely that's going on. And in deadly overnight blaze claimed 9 lives at Massachusetts assisted living home as rescue efforts continue in that area. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. And the Senate vote this week will test the popularity of Doge spending cuts. And Trump is to announce an aggressive Ukraine weapons plan. So Trump came around to a novel plan to send weapons to Ukraine. So it looks like there might be some weapons coming to Ukraine from the U.S. and all along those lines. And immigrants in overcapacity ICE detention said they're hungry and raise food quality concerns. And search efforts are paused as more flooding rain hits central Texas. Texas flood disaster shows elevation is salvation and new codes are needed. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. And Trump is pleading with followers to back Bondi in a dispute over the Epstein inquiry. So definitely on Jeffrey Epstein, Trump rolls out a new conspiracy theory about the conspiracy theory. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about as well. And questions remain at Secret Service 1 year after the Trump rally shooting. Senator Rand Paul sees cultural cover-up about Trump shooting last July, and preventable failures led to Trump assassination attempt. And there's even some reports that they knew or were concerned about the shooter several days before the shooting took place. So that's definitely something that folks are talking about. And July 14th, flood watch today, still very humid with heavy, slow moving thunderstorms. And that's over there in the various parts of the country. But it looks like strong storms could lead to more flooding in Maryland, just among one of the places that it could happen. And Trump to make second state visit to UK, hosted by King Charles III. So Trump news at a glance, King Charles schedules state visit as president booed at Club World Cup final. So Trump makes unprecedented second state visit to the UK. So we'll see how we are seen in other parts of the world as well. And who's got next? Democrats already lined up for the 2028 presidential race in early voting states, which is probably why Gavin Newsom was at one of the venues. And I think that there have been some other candidates that have been popping up at some of the states that make the decisions as well. And heavy rains are heading toward the East Coast, bringing threats of flooding to New York. So it looks like there might be some possibilities of some flooding in New York, and details emerge about pot farm immigration raid as worker dies. So a California farm worker dies after a 30-foot fall during an ice raid. So that is something that people are talking about is in their own words and all along those lines. And in his own words, Trump has changed his tune on Putin and the war in Ukraine. So maybe there's going to even be some new kind of alignment going on in the way that Trump feels about Putin. And documents show FEMA calls went unanswered. Christy Gnomes claims that that's fake news. So Gnome defends the FEMA response to Texas flooding and says Trump wants agency remade, not cut. So floods put Abbott, a disaster veteran, at the crossroads at Trump's FEMA rebrand. So that's definitely something going on. And Mamdani win sends jitters throughout the New York City luxury real estate market. So New York City is surprised CEOs to grill Mamdani socialist mayoral candidate. So we'll definitely see how this all goes out as well. And Camp Mystic leaders get a life-threatening flood alert. They evacuated an hour later. So definitely we're hearing a lot of things where people are either getting the notice in time or sometimes not getting it fast enough. And Obama's blunt message for Democrats, toughen up. So Obama returns to the fundraising circuit for the DNC, and he steps into the ring to deliver a knockout blow to Trump. And joined by Obama and Sherrill, Murphy raises more than $1.5 million for the DNC. And Trump says he's considering taking away famous comedians' U.S. citizenship. So Trump says he's considering revoking Rosie O'Donnell's U.S. citizenship. Rosie O'Donnell dismisses Trump's threats to revoke her U.S. citizenship, and Elaine DeGeneres supports Rosie O'Donnell as Donald Trump threatens to strip that comedian's U.S. citizenship. So that's just some of the things going on in the world. I'll bring in the one of the bosses of the network, Nick Palveda, as well as Rick Rosner, as well as Sasha Starr, and see what they've got going on in their world and in their mind, because definitely there's a lot going on in the world.
It's hot in Barcelona. So my wife's heading to North Carolina, and I'll be heading to Los Angeles in about 2 days.
Okay.
So I'll be able to go see Rick.
Okay, yeah, do come see us.
So, yeah, I'm going to be at the Century. What do they call it?
Century Plaza or something.
Yeah, Century Plaza or something like that. You know,
Yeah, it's only like 8 miles from us. We can meet up.
Really, you're that close?
Yeah, I mean it's not an easy 8 miles because it's through all this traffic, but that's fine. We'll come see you, or you come see.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I'll have a car, and I'll have to get your. Well, I think I have your email address. Anyway, yeah, well, I'm actually going to meet with one of my former law partners, Professor Hampton, on Friday. So the thing is, if you want to join us, unfortunately, it will be 10 o'clock Pacific time. Well, I guess this thing will be over with by then.
Yeah.
10 o'clock.
It's 7:15 Pacific, right?
Yeah,
now.
are you doing anything 10 o'clock Pacific time?
No, right today. When?
No, Friday. Friday is when.
Actually, we're flying out of here to go to my nephew's wedding, but I don't know. That might not be till later in the day. So.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Well, I'll touch base with you on that because he lives in Irvine. I don't know LA very well. So he lives in Irvine.
Irvine is an hour south of LA.
Really? Okay. I have to figure all the logistics out. If you're leaving on Friday, I just find out what time you're leaving, and then we'll see if we can get together Friday morning. That's,
okay. Yeah.
That'll be the tentative plan.
Okay.
It's quite a possibility. All right. Let's see what we got here that he was causing trouble with. Oh, FEMA and Camp Mystic. Okay. I did a little bit of research on Camp Mystic. They haven't had a flood like that in 100 years. So they were definitely caught off guard on this one because it's almost like it never happens and then it happens. But I think it should be a notice. Everybody should be on notice climate change is real.
Right, which
And
means every town, every spot along riverbanks needs to update their 100-year plan. Those 100-year
right,
plans, they were mapped in the 1950s, and it's not.
right.
Yeah, so
I think they got to update their plan, and same with where hurricanes are going to hit and how many tornadoes are going to hit. In other words, there's been weather changes, and you just have to be realistic about it, because if you wait for what's the name of that organization, FEMA? FEMA is reactionary. It's not proactive, to my knowledge, at all. It's always the mess took place. Now we're here. It's
yeah, they
not.
come in with emergency. I think they when they come to a disaster area, I think you can just go right up to them and get $800 fast cash to pay for any like for pay for diapers, food, a couple nights in a hotel, and then. But yeah, it's all after. It's not
Yeah,
before.
it's all reactionary. And so, Sasha, dear, we definitely got to talk about Russia Ukraine. Now, this is a real problem because I follow the blogs all the time, Sasha, on this, and I get like wildly different information. I mean, it's almost like impossible to know what is really going on. So I mean, who's winning? In other words, who's winning the war is depending who you're listening to on whatever blog or post that got on. So, sometimes they say, "Oh, Ukraine is pummeling Russia. They're going deep into Russia," and then next, "Oh, Russia's destroying Kiev," and Kiev's. Yeah, so I don't know what to do. I have to take a break.
See, what's a mystery here is that both sides believe that they're winning the war. Russians believe that they're pressing, and although they're taking heavy losses, but they're still moving ahead, regardless how slow. And Ukraine believes that its technological supremacy over Russia, help from the West, Western Europe, United States, and thanks to that, Ukraine will eventually would win the war. So you see, the Trump got himself into kind of a no-win situation because he wants a peace where both sides are convinced that they're winning the war. However, Ukraine is playing very clever. They said, yes, they agree to ceasefire. They play along with Trump and his plan, and so on, without actually desiring peace, because they are now, very soon they will start beating Russians, and it's coming. Now, Russians have different problems. They cannot stop the war. Regardless, they win the war, they lose the war, they can't stop it. Because imagine that 700,000 well-armed criminals, bandits, will come back to Russia without having any jobs, any sources of income. They will start rob their own population. That's what they've already done in Kursk. In some regions they freed from Ukrainians. They started to uh, take advantage of their own Russian population. They started to rape and take the possessions and all that stuff. So that's what's waiting Russia in case the war is over. They cannot do it. And regardless, I'm not even going to say that Putin will lose his power and all that stuff. Just forget about it. The criminal situation will explode, and there is no end to it. That's why Russia cannot make any peace whatsoever. They'd rather lose the war than to have a peace.
Yeah,
Here's a story from yesterday's LA Times that shows how these wars affect the U.S. And we've seen from Israel, from Ukraine, Russia, that a lot of modern war is fought with drones. Drones can penetrate
mhm.
deep. And this New York Times article says we lag the world, especially China and Russia, in our drones that we were making hardly any. And Pete Hegseth has acknowledged that. And here's where having an idiot in charge of the Department of Defense might actually be good, because he just, he's not an experienced manager. He doesn't know anything. But if somebody tells him, he says regulations, too many have bureaucratic red tape is holding us back. So even an idiot in charge can go in and like push all the regs out of the way, and maybe we'll get some drones out of it, because obviously that's how you fight modern warfare.
Yeah, and if you look at the economics of Russia versus the United States, Russia's GDP is 2 trillion. The United States is 29.18 trillion. We are huge in terms of economic resources relative to Russia. Not only that, our budget this year is 1 trillion on defense. But here's the problem: how much of that is actually going to produce needed weapons, and how much is going to bloated bureaucracy of people that push papers? I'm sorry. It isn't just, you can't just throw money at a problem and realize problem solved. You got to figure out, okay, you now have $1 trillion budget. What are you going to buy? Are you going to buy a bunch of B-2 bombers? Are you going to buy M1 tanks? And this is what I also heard, Sasha, the M1 Abrams that was so wonderful from the US, 27 out of 31 have already been destroyed by the Russians. Now, if that's true, we have a serious problem. So the Defense Department, and there isn't, by the way, there isn't anything really good on this area, at least I haven't found, to get the demographics of what's going on with the Defense Department. But just because you have $1 trillion budget doesn't mean you actually have spent it wisely, and so I think the Defense Department really needs to be looked at very carefully by people who are efficiency experts. Yeah, Rick.
There was,
Let's
okay.
Sasha go.
There was an excellent article by former Ukrainian chief commander Valery Zaluzhny, and now he is ambassador of Ukraine in UK. What he's saying is actually a few very interesting things. One of them, the war that started in 2022 is completely different from the war in 2024, 2025. And no lessons are being learned by Western powers. They're still about to, they're not even producing yet, they're about to produce some shells and some tanks and maybe some planes. That's a thing of the past, because you will spend millions and tens of millions of dollars to produce a single a fighter, which could be easily outmaneuvered and killed by either missiles or even drones.
Wow.
So this is a completely irresponsible thing. What the West needs Ukraine and its experience fighting who? The Russian army. Think about it. Who in the world ever could fight the Russian army after 1945? Nobody. Everybody was scared of Russians and their hydrogen bombs and their armies and tanks that they could overrun all Europe in a matter of 24 hours or maybe 48 hours. Depends on the traffic. So think about that. And Ukraine, not England, not France, never mind United States. It's Ukraine who is taking on Russia. They are taking on a great Russian army, and look at what they are doing with that. They are bombing Moscow. They're bombing far away airports in Russia and some chemical producing plants, refineries, just name it. That's what they're doing, and this is why they believe that the victory is getting closer and closer. So Trump, in a way, he is upsetting both Russians and Ukrainians, but Ukrainians are clever. They're like, yeah, Mr. Trump, you're great. You're the best thing since sliced bread. Yeah, we are going along with your plan and so on. Russians are not clever enough to do exactly the same thing. So they're saying, no, we are interested to continue the war. But I explained already why.
So the drone problem with the U.S. is tailor-made for Hegseth and Trump because it's easily understood, and those guys are not the most experienced, not the brightest, but this is a clear issue. And Trump has already issued an executive order called Unleashing American Drone Dominance last month. So they know the problem. And we should be able to tool up. I mean, looking back on World War II, we were caught a little bit by surprise, but within a year, we were turning out all sorts of heavy machinery. Now's not the time for heavy machinery. We should be able, they should appoint a drone czar, somebody whose job it is to frickin' get us to crank out a bunch of drones, to drop the prices. Like right now, we are making these huge drones that can do all sorts of stuff for the cost 10 million bucks a piece. No, I mean, yeah, keep making those, but also make cheap drones that cost a couple grand. And it doesn't matter if you lose 800 of them in a skirmish. You
Yeah, and the U.S. was great in World War II because we produced a lot of cheap Sherman tanks. They weren't as good as the Tigers. They weren't as good as anything that the Germans had, but we produced lots of them. So the thing is that the Germans were just basically overwhelmed with the vast majority of American junk that came to them.
right,
And same thing here.
you need junk plus like very brave Americans. We sent you know we sent all these guys up in these freaking rickety ass bombers, with
Yeah.
huge.
And Russia in a conventional war is not a big opponent for the United States. Let's just get real. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the economy. They don't have the technology. They do have Tsar Bomba, which you can see on the internet, which is quite impressive, the hydrogen bomb. The hydrogen bombs and the atomic bombs they developed are impressive. They blow things up. That's what Russia has. They can destroy themselves and they can destroy the world. Other than that, they can't do much. And I don't see where Putin is getting any real big advantage over this whole thing. I mean, if you read history, stuff like this doesn't get you much at all. So
Also, like one issue with the drones is supply chain, but with drones, they're so simple. The technology is so freaking simple that supply chain shouldn't be much of a problem. You should be able to use over-the-counter components for a lot of. You don't need to retool America. It's possible to just make a ton of them. They are freaking basically overgrown toys.
yeah. Yeah, and the thing is that could be overwhelming for the Russians because they could launch zillions of drones between the United States and Ukraine into Russia. But would that even stop the war? I mean, the thing is, the Russians are kind of, it comes to war. They're used to living poorly and dying, because they can't eat and they drink too much. So I don't know if it's going to have any impact on that.
If you fill the sky in a battle between, in some skirmish on the border between Ukraine and Russia, and you fill the sky with 12,000 drones, and some of them are dropping little explosives, others are dropping like pieces of paper that says, just go surrender instead of being blown up by our flying mosquito bombs.
It actually could have an impact, and then the war would be over with, in a very short period of time, or at least Russia would curtail their ambitions, whatever they were. What were they going to do? Were they going to occupy Ukraine and install a leader and tell the Ukrainians what to do? Is that what? Well, I mean, what was the end game? Let's say they said, "Okay, Putin, you can have Ukraine." Sasha, what would Putin do? I mean, I just don't see the Ukrainians bowing to Moscow. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Nick, are you ready? Because I've heard enough of Sasha's show, and I understand part of what's going on and everything along those lines. But I just want to know: are you ready to speak Russian? Because if I've heard Sasha correctly and everything, their goal was to go further into NATO, which means that you would then, if they were getting past Ukraine, which we know they're not going to do because the Ukraine are very proud people and everything along those lines, then they would be coming for France and Spain and trying to take over the entirety of Europe. That's what I think the goal was, based on what I've heard from Sasha. Is that correct, Sasha? Did I mishear you?
Well, under certain circumstances, Russia, if they will uh, prevail in Ukraine. I'm saying prevail means somehow they will install their own puppet parliament or government in Ukraine, and that will free them to attack NATO countries. Of course, it's not going to be Spain, but it will be Baltic republics, it will be Poland, perhaps Finland. And with that, they would like to exercise how actually the Article 5 of NATO work. Please demonstrate, please explain, please do it. And with that invitation, it would be very interesting indeed to see how this Article 5 works. Because right now, nobody has a clue. It was used only once when the United States attacked Afghanistan, and for some political purposes, probably, it evoked Article 5, and all NATO countries contributed for the US attack of Afghanistan. Wonderful. Let's see if Russia will attack Baltic republics, how Article 5 exactly will work. Is it going to be on the first day or on the second day? It's going to be army sent to Baltic republics to fight Russians? Or it's going to be perhaps speeches in United States condemning Russian attacks. So how exactly this Article 5 works? Nick, what do you think?
Historically, that would be a big mistake for Russia, Sasha, because Americans always look for a pretext to get involved in a war.
Nick, that was not my question. I'm not talking about Russian will make mistake by doing attack about six states or not. No, I don't care.
Oh, the United States will annihilate Russia. The U.S. will annihilate Russia. There may be a first strike. There may be no more Russian.
Not so fast. Not so fast. They will start with some small attacks on Baltic states. The first will be Estonia because it's a very small country.
1.9 million people.
Yeah, there's 1.9 million. I plan on visiting Estonia very shortly.
Yes, I plan it.
Because it looks to be a beautiful country.
Yes.
And I will tell you what will happen is any army group from Russia that attacks Estonia will be wiped out by the USA. They can forget it. Because we have those things called B-2 bombers. I don't know if you saw those. They're very impressive.
Get realistic.
Within an hour, the Russian army will be decimated.
No, Nick.
There will be no more Russian army.
Nick, you want to entertain?
They can't stand the USA. Come on.
Nick, are you trying to entertain your MAGA listeners?
No, I didn't be close.
Don't go that low. The Estonia will be overrun by Russians in a matter of 36, 48 hours.
And the Russians will be annihilated by the United States.
You think the United States will go to nuclear?
Oh, absolutely. No, they don't need to. We have our B-2 bombers. Didn't you see?
This is not modern warfare. So if Russia gives enough notice, which they shouldn't, if they start massing on the border of Estonia. Estonia is currently spending 3.2% of its GDP on defense. In the next year, they're going to kick it up to 5% because of the threat of Russia. And Estonia is one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world. Yep. And I would assume that Estonia is looking at drones. And if Russia masses troops, Estonia will hit them with tens of thousands of drones.
Right. And if Estonia is smart, they'll be buying Patriot defense systems as well as drones and mobilizing, like what Israel does. The conscription have a big army. Russia just isn't that big and powerful. They're all fake people. It's like World Wrestling Federation. They blow a lot of hot air, but they don't have much behind it, except Obama. So other than having a very impressive nuclear weapon, they don't have anything at all over there. There's Leningrad, now called St. Petersburg, Moscow, end of cities, end of major cities, unless you want to call Vladivostok a major city. All it is a bunch of empty land, and the people there, for the most part, are Western and don't have a clue what's even going on. So I don't think they would even attack the cities. They just destroy the Russian army because those
Uh,
people are nuts.
Nick, all that what you said will not help Estonia because of with all these drones and patriots and everything else, they will be simply overrun in about maximum 36 hours.
By who? The
By
Russian army? Like they overran Ukraine?
once, no, not while they're fighting Ukraine. That's where I
No,
started.
no. I'm saying did the Russian army overrun Ukraine?
They have to overrun Ukraine. They have to complete.
But did they? No, they didn't.
Well,
Because they're incompetent. How can they can't
okay,
they can't overrun a bicycle, let
okay,
alone
I'll do it
Estonia?
slower. For our listeners, I will do it a little bit slower. What I'm saying is that while Ukraine resists Russia, Russia will not attack Western Europe, NATO countries, or anybody else for that matter. Once they will prevail in Ukraine and will install their friendly puppet government,
Ain't gonna happen.
then they will start attack NATO countries. Number one, Baltic states. Number two, Moldova. Number three, Poland. Number four, Finland. And so
Poland isn't going to let Russia do this to them
they are
again.
not going to do that simultaneously. They will start with Estonia. Number one, just one little Estonia. Now, what you're saying is that if
Yeah,
they will do that, then B-2 bombers will destroy
right.
Russia and so on.
That's correct.
How many hours B-2 bombers need to reach
It'll,
Russia?
it'll, it'll, it'll take about 1 hour. The B 2 bombers are incredibly fast.
Really? Now,
They crossed over.
how,
They can go across the
uh,
United States in like less than an hour. These things go warp
Nick,
speed,
how many hours it took B-2
maybe 2 hours.
bombers to reach Iran and come back? Do you remember?
How many hours? Wasn't that many?
16 hours one
So
way.
it's 8 hours one way.
16 hours one way, 32
It can't be that
hours
slow.
back and forth. Oh, really?
No, they're much faster than that. I'm going to LA and I'll be there
Time
in
it
like
will
11
take
hours.
Russian ballistic missiles
Uh,
to reach United States. Do you know that? 28
no,
minutes. Remember,
if they can get past our defense system.
8 minutes to reach and destroy United States. So what are you talking about? Where is it?
I don't have any faith in the Russians like
It's
you do.
nowhere.
Anyway,
Article 5 is nowhere. It's not going to be used, especially while Trump is at power. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. What I'm saying is forget about Article 5. So Europe stands alone against Russia. And that's what's going to happen. They will have to defend.
and the European Union is much bigger and stronger than Russia. Russia is a tiny little
It
dot
doesn't
with a
matter
lot of
in
land.
military business. It doesn't
Uh,
matter how big your economy and what's your
It's
budget.
not just the economy;
Doesn't
it's the
matter.
army. The European Union is huge.
Uh,
443 million people against what does Russia have? Maybe 100 million?
160
doesn't
million.
matter. It's a
160 million. 443 million. And we
different,
have the Germans. The Germans
different,
would love another shot at Russia.
it's completely different.
Russia.
Russia
What's Russia's history in wars?
will be
What's Russia's history in wars? It's not good.
It's gonna be
It's not good.
75% of Russian economy is now working for war. And in Europe, it's maybe 1.5%. So tell me, please, where
Let's
is your
let's
Article 5? Just admit, sorry,
the history is not good.
so
Napoleon came in and occupied Moscow as they fled.
Yeah, but that was
In
200
World War
years
One,
ago.
they surrendered. They surrendered in World War One.
Russia
In
didn't
World War Two, they were decimated by the Germans.
Russian
I mean,
did
come
not
on,
surrender. They took Napoleon out of Moscow, out of Russia, and eventually completely destroyed it.
But we're not using bombers against Russia. We will fight proxy wars the way we've used Ukraine. We'll use non-escalatory weapons that like drones. Drones are great because they don't seem like an escalation. They seem like little flying fun things, even though they can kill a lot of people. So there will be a ton of drones, freaking, and yeah, we'll support. We'll do a lot of support from behind. We'll arm these countries,
Which
but
countries? Estonia. You want to provide
yeah,
Estonia with
but
100
yeah, the Estonia. If
million?
Russia, if Ukraine, if Russia takes Ukraine and Ukraine falls, you're right. They can take Estonia in no time at all because
Right. And my question to you, Rick, is, and where is Article 5 of NATO and how is going to be implemented if
it won't be implemented with B-2 bombers because that's a huge escalation and runs the risk of Russia rolling out a tactical nuke, which is just a euphemism for a small nuclear weapon. And we've gone 80 years without nuclear weapon used in war.
And
So
who used the nuclear weapon in war?
we did, but
Of course we did, because remember, that's part of our national anthem. Bombs bursting in air. We
yeah,
like to
we're
see
not going
bombs
to do
bursting
that.
in
We're
air.
not going to risk the entire northern hemisphere over Estonia.
Didn't you see Patton's speech? I
Yeah,
mean,
I
come
know.
on.
Patton wanted to go in after we beat Germany. He wanted to keep rolling and roll right into Moscow, but we didn't do that. Russia was our ally. And because we didn't do that, Soviet Union held Eastern Europe for almost 50 years after the end of World War II.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you look at the history of Russian wars, it's not good. Napoleon beats them up. World War I, they surrendered. Can you believe that? World War II, they were basically lost millions of men. And if it wasn't for the United States bailing them out, Russia would be, having a swastika on there in Moscow.
Russia has
So
a
the
ton
thing
of
is,
real estate, and it is Russia lost 10 million people in World War II. The U.S. lost
no,
4% of that,
Russians lost
right.
27 million.
27 million. The U.S.
Yeah, and then they lost a lot more because they killed their own people because they're stupid.
Well, they
Yeah.
were killing their own people before the war and after the war just as well. So there's nothing
Yeah.
new.
And then the thing is,
They lost.
if Russia was so great, then why would all the Baltic states and Ukraine, and frankly almost anybody, not want anything to do with them? It's because they're not great. I mean, their leadership is corrupt and they're a POS.
So
Like I
Ukraine
enjoy St.
has
Petersburg. They have great art, but they need to stay in their lane, buddy, which is not to pretend or be delusional about world dominance. As they say in Pawn Stars, it ain't happening. Now, if you look at the U.S.'s um, in wars, there's always a pretext. Remember the Maine? Remember the Lusitania? Remember Pearl Harbor? There's always remember something. And the U.S. just is so eager to get into a war. All you need to do is light that match and we'll be all over them. I mean, come on. Now, of course, it could end up with 20, 50 million people dead, but the United States is nutty when it comes to stuff like that. So I wouldn't pick on us or USA. I would say you're making a big mistake, Meatball, because the United States is nutty.
And Nick, you're talking from the position that if Russians would attack United States and what United States would do to resist Russian attack. And I agree with you. There's no doubts about that. But if they will attack Estonia, that's a
Yeah.
completely different animal.
Well,
There,
well,
United States,
well, maybe not so much. Remember when Pearl Harbor was bombed?
yeah.
Hawaii was not a state; it was just a territory of the United States. And so the thing is,
But
Estonia.
East attacked American assets,
Yeah,
American fleet, of course. So there was must have been some response. What I'm talking about, Estonia to United States is nobody. What's the difference between Estonia and Ukraine? Only one difference, that
yeah,
there is Article 5, and in Ukraine there is no Article 5. What I'm
right.
saying is that Article 5 is a fiction. I read it, and what it implies that in case of the attack of another power on one of the NATO countries, they have to get consultations. First of all, the attacked party, they have to start defending themselves against invader. Number two, they will hold consultation. What is the best way to deal with this threat? Maybe diplomacy is a way to get out of it. Maybe something else. So, in my humble opinion, Article 5 is a joke. And nobody will abide by that. And Russians will test it. They will
Good.
attempt just to prove to the West that you are full of shit and your Article 5 is a fiction and it's not working. If you're right and it's not, prove it. Go and prove it.
Yeah, I think the thing is then they'll be eating glass in Moscow and St. Petersburg. Do the Russian people really want to be annihilated? See, that's the question. I think if you went to the Russian people,
You
do
have
they really want their beautiful cities
nothing
turned
to
into
talk about
glass
Russian people.
and ash? Because at the end of the day, that's what will happen. The U.S. will still stand.
Nobody will
Russia will be
ask
gone.
Russian people. Russian people, they are completely numb and dead and deaf, and nobody will ask them anything. Whatever wants Mr. Putin and his cronies, that's what's gonna happen, and nobody will ever ask Russian people.
Well, then maybe it's a good idea we do supply Ukraine with a bunch of weapons, let them go in as Zelensky says, bring the war to Moscow, all right? So they can see the horrors of war. It's not a fun thing. I mean, having your buildings blown up and people torn to pieces in a small micro sense isn't a fun thing. And then the Russian people can ask, "Is this what you want for our whole country?" It's kind of stupid,
But no,
And the thing is, and what is their point? I mean, I just don't get it.
the
So
point is Russia wants to dominate the world together
why?
with China. They want it. They have the theory.
Why?
It's coming even from Lenin or Karl Marx that the communism or whatever is now, instead of communism in Russia, they have to dominate the world. And America is a great Satan and they have to be destroyed.
When did Russia dominate anything? I mean, the thing is, they're lucky to be able to keep their cities going. So
Well,
them dominating the world is a bloody joke.
they for centuries had empires that dominated 1/6 of the earth.
Yeah, they have a bunch of empty, frozen tundra.
Doesn't matter, but it was theirs.
It's like
It was
Canada.
theirs. And they want to have Alaska back, and they want to have Brooklyn back.
Sure.
There's a lot of Russian population there.
That's
That's
they're delusional. Look, they're not even good at chess anymore.
you know,
They're horrible. The U.S. and India are both better, and so is China.
they
They
will.
can't win a chess game. How are they going to take over the world?
See, the Trump now met his nemesis. Remember the mentor of Trump, lawyer was the name Cohen, and he taught him, you always attack and attack and attack, never go back and keep attacking and attack. And that's what Russia is doing. Maybe they had the same mentor. They keep attacking, if not this country, then that country. If they will attack their own people or some other people, they are always on the attack. And you know how you deal with that? You have to disarm, you have to completely destroy it. That's what you need. And you have, luckily enough, you have Ukraine who is capable of doing that, gives them a little bit of weapons. And they will do the job. They don't need American, they don't need Europeans, they don't need anybody. They need more and more missiles and drones and all kind of ammunition and weapons. They will do the job. And America even does it. Oh, we didn't know. Oh my God, they're so clever. Oh, we didn't know that Russia, we're sorry. And by the way, we wanted to have a peace. Remember, I talked to Vladimir a few times, but he was not sure. Well, maybe now is the time to make a peace. After all, your city will be destroyed. How about that?
Sasha, if I recall, Russia couldn't even take on Afghanistan. Afghanistan kicked their tail and they went fleeing back to Moscow. So they can't take Afghanistan. You really think they can take Estonia? I just I don't have much confidence.
Well,
I don't think they're very confident when it
it's
comes
much
to war.
easier. It's much easier to take over Estonia than Afghanistan. If
So
you
I looked at the geography between Estonia and Russia. They've got a 180-mile shared border, and more three-quarters of that is lakes and rivers, which are should be easier to defend than a land border. They only have to defend about 50 miles of land border, and right now Estonia is happy for the Ukraine war to continue because it gives Estonia time to deploy what they call a drone wall by 2027. So Estonia is fortifying. It's only got 50 miles of land border to make hard to get through, and 140, 130 miles of water border. And can Estonia come up with ways to make that impenetrable? Probably not, but they can make it a lot harder.
I
Yeah,
think the same thing applies to all Western Europe. They all preparing for war with Russia, but they will be ready probably around 2030. And they, therefore, is their desire that the Ukrainian war will go as long as possible. And this is where United States hurts Europe by trying to force a peace, which he cannot do it anyway, but he's still trying. He's trying from this angle and from that angle, and Vikov will go, and Rubio will go, and he will go, and somebody will go. And he is trying to do something what Western Europe is completely against. They need Ukraine to fight Russians as long as possible, so they will, in the meantime, prepare for their war with Russia, if necessary, and most likely it will be necessary. So, unfortunately, I don't know what Trump is doing. Definitely, is not in interest of Western Europe. It's not in interest of American people either.
So here's the problem for Estonia. They can call up 43,000 troops. Russia can call up 3 million. So
yeah. Okay, so they have
it's,
a little bit of material disadvantage.
Mhm.
You know, so
Yeah, but however, you have to admit that there is also Article 5, which will prevent Russia from invading Estonia. They will be ready to invade, and they will say, oh my God, there is Article 5. How dare we are to invade Estonia? Let's call it stop. Let's stop completely. Article 5. That's not going to happen. Nobody cares about Article 5.
nobody cares about Estonia. Is that right?
well,
Yeah,
not enough to risk nuclear war.
yeah.
Well, the thing is, look, if Russia invades a NATO country, why wouldn't we risk it? I mean, Russia needs to be slapped, basically. Period. The end. It really depends on who the commander in chief is at the time they decide to do that, if they ever decide to do this, pull a stunt like that. I think you have a strong commander in chief of the United States. They're going to annihilate Russia, because they'll just get sick and tired of having
No, because
simple.
a nuclear exchange, we have weapons,
Yeah,
hydrogen bombs that are city killers that would kill, the Hiroshima bomb, Nagasaki bombs used in war killed
I know.
100,000 to 200,000 people. We have nuclear bombs that are 50 times as powerful that if you dropped them on a city, they would kill 3 million people. We're not
Yeah.
going to do that. We are not going to kill 6 million Russians and have them retaliate and kill 10 million Americans.
Well, why not? The world be over.
Because
If you knock a couple bombs in Moscow and Leningrad, the war's over. Russia
it
doesn't have that
isn't.
many.
There are the Russians have nuclear subs that are hard to find that contain
Yeah,
hundreds of nuclear warheads. If we
yeah,
bomb a couple cities, they will retaliate by bombing half a dozen of our cities. And
yeah.
if
It'll be bad. I mean, I'm not going to say it's not going to be the nicest thing in the world, but we certainly won't have to worry about Russia anymore. And I'll tell you, the thing is, nobody wants to live under Russian domination, except the Russians. For some reason, they like it, but the rest of the world, they're not interested in that at all. So whatever they do over there just is not appealing.
If we hit Russia with 2 city-killing nuclear bombs, you still have to worry about Russia. Certainly, the leadership won't be in any city in the middle of a war leading up to a nuclear exchange. They're in a secret bunker someplace. And even with Moscow gone, St. Petersburg gone, they would still be able to fire hundreds of nuclear warheads at the U.S. You still have to worry about Russia. And now you've hit them hard, and they may not feel any limits to what they do to. We might lose 20 million Americans.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I figured the loss would be 20 and 30 million Americans. But we have 300
Nobody
million.
wants to.
Still have 300 million. There won't be any Russians, though. They'll be all gone. Then we'll have to discuss
That's not true. Russia is the largest geographic country on Earth. You can drop a ton of nukes on them and still have half the Russian population left.
Yeah, but basically, basically it will be decimated because those are the people living in nowhere.
Nick,
those are the former peasants. They're not going to do anything.
Nick, there is another problem with nuclear exchanges that most of the U.S. Nuclear missiles are located in Republican states. So these states will be wiped out first before anybody else. So there will be no Republican Party, no Republicans at all after nuclear exchange. There will be few Democrats left, that's for sure, but not too many Republicans.
Well, half of the U.S.'s deployed nuclear weapons are on nuclear subs because they're hard to find. You don't know what they're hard to find.
That's very, very clever. They're
but Russia has the same thing. So if we start lobbing nukes at each other, it's from subs off of each country's coasts, and those you can't defend against them because the flight time for a nuclear missile off of a sub into America or into Moscow is I don't know, 10 minutes, 8 minutes.
Sasha said 28 minutes, but
no. Intercontinental ballistic land-based missile will take 28 minutes. Now, from submarine, it will take 10 to 15.
Okay. Well, we're going to live in interesting times. In the meantime, our time is up, so we're going to have to go. But we can followed by Economics with the Honorable David M. Walker next on the Pod TV network, and we will see you there.